What's going on, guys? Welcome back. It is Sunday. We're going to do a little bit of a watch list here. Go through the NASDAQ, the ES, the QQQ, the SPY. Go through some top stocks that I'm watching next week. This is a no-face, pantless, shirtless, relaxed video where I don't have to worry about the camera on my face. I can just talk through the stocks I'm watching, talk through the things I'm looking for next week, talk through some events that we should be careful of. Love this type of video, and I hope you guys enjoyed as well. So, let's start it off with the elephant in the room, NVIDIA earnings, right? So we have NVIDIA earnings next week. That is right here. Let me go ahead and show you that little bubble on the bottom of the TOS where we can see that. You guys can see right here. That is the earnings on NVIDIA. That is August 28th. So that is what? That is Wednesday. Wednesday, August 28th, we have NVIDIA earnings. Now, what should we anticipate from this? Well, we can probably anticipate both Monday and Tuesday to be relatively lackluster, really directionless moves on some semiconductor stocks as investors sort of prepare for that earnings event. So I'm really not expecting that much out of the semiconductors. Now, there are times, and there's those outlier times where there are large moves prior to earnings as maybe investors or someone knows something, right? So it's a tough one, right? I would personally walk into the week and expect to not trade semiconductors both Monday and Tuesday. That's just my way to protect myself, to say, hey, let's not get too involved in semis before that earnings, right? Because there's going to be a lot riding on that NVIDIA earnings. So stocks like NVIDIA, stocks like AMD, SMCI, Qualcomm, TSM, MU, right? All those semiconductor stocks, maybe Broadcom as well. Just be a little bit careful. Understand that if you start to see some sort of slow action, some choppy action, it is due to the NVIDIA earnings, right? So let's start there. Let's make sure we understand that. The next thing I want to talk about, I don't know if we have any other big earnings. NVIDIA is really the biggest one. I'll go ahead and pop up the calendar here, guys, so you can see the calendar right in front of your face. That is right here. So really nothing crazy. I think NVIDIA is clearly the big boy there. You do have CrowdStrike and Salesforce, which you guys can keep an eye on as well. But the big boy is obviously NVIDIA. Lululemon, interesting. I love Lululemon, but, you know, who knows? So, really, I'm just going to point out NVIDIA. I think that's the most important thing of the week. Now, quickly hopping over to the economic calendar, you guys can see a pretty light one. Really, the heavy hitters are right around here, that GDP, that unemployment claims on Thursday, so we'll keep an eye out for that. You have your PCE price index on Friday, and then we have that consumer confidence on Tuesday around 10 a.m. So nothing here that really screams out. The GDP, probably the heaviest hitter. And then, of course, I think that NVIDIA earnings being the number one thing to watch. So with that out of the way, let's jump into the technicals. And what I want to jump into here, guys, is really focus on the major spots. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give us a nice clean chart just like this. And I'm just going to focus on the major spots to start. And then we will sort of fine tune this as we go. So I think right now, the most important thing to be watching is right around this 19,680. I can't quite get it perfect because it has been a little bit of a range. So I'm sort of keeping it as a range anywhere between that 650 area, right around that 650 to anywhere around that 730 spot. That's sort of where my range has been sitting. And I'll show you why my range goes from that 730 to that 650. So if we look at this 4-hour chart, we can very clearly see previous lows around that 730, previous lows around that 730, previous sort of support within that 730 to 650 zone. Then right here, we can see that general rejection right in that zone again. We can see these rejections in this zone short term. And then end of week last week, we can see that zone holding strong. So if I go into the short-term time frames, we can see how this zone was what sort of reacted, right? It's not just the exact level here. It's this zone right in this area, which I'm looking to see, or I'm looking for it to be right around the lows here around 730 and the highs here around that 650. So this zone right here, in my opinion, is what's right now keeping the market higher, right? Between that 650 and that 730 demand zone. Now, what else is in that area? What you guys can see is that very clear daily 50 SMA that is sitting right there on the NASDAQ futures, right? You can see the market is really trying to hold above that daily SMA. That gives me confidence, right? When a daily SMA is sitting there like that, right within that demand zone, that gives me a lot of confidence that there is going to be an attempt to hold this area, right? We held, this is Thursday, Friday of 2 weeks ago, right around the highs of 650, 19,650 on the NASDAQ. we can see there was a very strong attempt to defend this level even after that Thursday downside. And on Friday, we saw that demand step up, right? And the other spot that I'm watching is this 730, which is that Tuesday low. I think that Tuesday low, right around that 730, 740 is going to be very, very important. And I'm going to show you now. This is sort of my short-term watch, my short-term levels, right? That Tuesday low, I have it around that 730, 740. Of course, you can never always get it perfect, guys. There's always a little bit of adjusting. The exact low is 19,743. So I can adjust that to 19,743. It's always going to be a little bit of a zone, guys, right? That's the important thing to realize here. It's not just, hey, we're under exactly 19,743, then, we're breaking down here, right? You got to sort of watch this zone. You got to see how the market reacts within that intraday action to get a real idea, right? If you see here on Friday, this is a great example of it not being an exact level, right? You had sort of wick lows here within the zone. You had some wick lows here. You had a little fake out that came back up, right? So you really just got to watch the entire zone. You can see here, a little bit into the zone, back up, a little bit into the zone, back up, into the zone, back up, into the zone, back up, right? So that whole zone between 650 and that 743 is really, really that main spot that I'm watching, right? We can very clearly see if we go to the hourly chart, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit to see those previous highs from August 1st, right here is those previous highs from August 1st. Look at how the NASDAQ rejected it here, right, and has now tried, I can't say it has so far, right, permanently, but it has tried to hold above it, right? So that is very important. If we're above that 50 SMA, if we're above these August 1st highs, if we're above these Thursday, Friday highs right here, and we are seeing demand step up right around that 650 area, all right, I am definitely looking for this market to stay higher. Now, if we break under this, that is where things start to get a little bit questionable. So let me go into the 30-minute chart, and let me talk about the breakdown levels that we need to be careful of. Number one, I am watching this 19,520 right here. That is this low from that Thursday drop. That is the low from that Monday. That is the low area here from that Friday and Thursday. If we break under that 19,520, I think you will very quickly trade back to 19,400. Now, 19,400, if I zoom out, I will show you why 19,400. So I'm going to zoom in now on the 4-hour chart if TOS allows me. I got to give it a second. So right here on the 4-hour chart, we can see we had some previous highs right here around 19,400. So that would be my next level to come down to, under 19,520, which is right here. I would expect this to come down to 19,400. Now, things get concerning. The only time this gets concerning to me is if we break 19,400. Because under 19,400, there is nothing, in my opinion, of support until 19,000. Between 19,400 right here and this 19,000, you really do not have anything of significance. It is pretty much just a straight-up move here from Thursday pre-market. That is a gap, right? This is a Thursday pre-market gap up. If we get under this low at 19,400, I would expect the markets to start to slip aggressively back down towards that 19K, maybe back down towards that 120 SMA. So the levels that need to defend for me, 19,520, 19,400, and I think to make it very strong, we need to stay above the 19,650. We can see that is that Friday demand that stepped up. Now, if we do stay above that 19,650 and that 50 SMA, I would expect your next push higher to go into this 20,050 level, and I will share with you why this level gets so tough if I go to the 4-hour chart. So here on the 4-hour chart, we can see that 20,050, we can see that 20,050, we can see that 20,050 rejection area. That is going to be a very tough spot. And if we go to the 30-minute chart again, we can see, look at how tough it was when we started to navigate close to that level. All right, so this is very clear up here. We need to be very careful up into this 20,000, 20,050 area. That is clearly a heavy spot on the 4-hour, and we saw how it got smacked down on Thursday. So careful up here, right into that 20,050, 20,025 high, and then we're watching these demand lows around 19,650 and 19,520. This market has been generally sideways, right? We have been consolidating. We have really stayed within the same zone for almost a week now. And we are anticipating that NVIDIA earnings. So I am expecting at some point this consolidation to end for a directional move to either side. We just have to stay in tune with these levels, adjust as we get the information, right? These levels could adjust a little bit throughout the week. That is our job as traders, to adjust as we see it. That is going to be something we need to pay attention to. Now, on the QQQ, there is, right, if that NASDAQ future is maybe a little bit confusing to you, there is the most clearest level on the stock market right now, and that is 474 on the QQQ. This is the clearest mark on the stocks, on the market right now. There's no doubt. 474, 474, 474, 474, 474, and 474. That is a, without a doubt, clear as can be level on the stock market. I can't even express how clean that is, right? That is right there, right there, right there, right there, right there, and right there. And what else is right there? It is the 50 SMA. It is as clear as can be. So, as long as the QQQ is over 474, I do not anticipate the market to go lower. I do not anticipate the market to drop if we continue to see the demand stepping up off 474. We saw it all on Friday. We saw it on the lows on Thursday. That is that daily 50 on the Qs. That is without a doubt the clearest level on the market. I would be watching this like a hawk. If we do see a flip back under this 474, that is where I would definitely start to get concerned of downside, possibly to fill that gap up that happened on that Thursday, right? So 474, so clear there, must watch level. If I include some intraday levels, you guys can see that 474 still down there, very clear, right? We see that down there, but we can see there are some intraday levels as well. You can see this 478.50, that is that Tuesday low that held very nicely into close on Friday. I have that on my charts. Next level I have in my charts is this 481. This is that rejection spot that came in Thursday that caused more downside. That is the Wednesday lows, and we can see that we closed below that on Friday this week. The push that we saw on Friday got rejected right here at that 483. That is the highs of Tuesday. That is the highs here around this Wednesday, Thursday move, and we can see that rejection that came in at 483. Above that, I can very clearly see that 486 level that sort of smacked down the market on Thursday early morning. So overall, 474 is your major pivot. You have to have that on your charts. There are some intraday levels to watch, but really the bigger picture all goes off that 474. If we go to the S&P 500 futures, the big level of the biggest level to the upside here on the S&P 500 futures is 5660, 5665. This is very clear. I'm going to show you why in just a second. 5665, 5660 on the ES futures. That is a major 4-hour pivot level. We can see right here, this is 5660 to 5665. We can see the previous lows here. We can see the rejections here that caused major downside on the 4-hour chart. If we go over, we can see that is the exact level that has gotten smacked down twice this week, right? Both Thursday and Friday, we saw the smackdown. So 5660 to 5665, let me make sure this is correct, right? We can see how clear that rejection is on Thursday and those rejections are on Friday. If we get over this level, I'm going to say it, and I think you're going to see all-time highs on the ES. If you get over this 5660, 5665, and you see a hold above it, I really don't think there is much left until that 5708, 5720 all-time high. If you can get over this 4-hour pivot on maybe some strong NVIDIA earnings, 5660, 5665, I would anticipate the market to really start to get that push over this very clear smackdown level. If we stay under it, markets stay relatively sideways to potentially weak. Now the big level below, let me show you the big level below that has to hold in my opinion, and that is 5593 to around the 5588. Let me show you why. 1 second. I'm going to make this a little bit more clear for you, and that is right here. So if I zoom out on this 4-hour chart, give you a little bit of a scale here, you can see these previous highs. Let me drag this over here. These previous highs around this 5588 is right here, right here, right here, right here, and right there, right? We can see how the market reacted multiple times at that level. That is the previous highs from August 1st. And if we go down to the 1 hour chart, take a look at how the market reacted to that level. This 55.88 to 55.90 zone, that is these highs right here. And look at how that came in on Thursday. I think that is very clear. We can maybe drag this down to around 85 if you want to get a little bit more in there. But I like that 90 spot, 55.90 to that 85 zone. We'll leave it at 85 right now just to include some of those wick lows. But I really am watching that 55.85 to 55.90 area. Once again, I'll show you why that's so important. I'll go to the hourly chart. Might be able to explain it a little bit better on that hourly. If we go to this hourly chart and we zoom in, we can see back here in August 1st, we had that major rejection in that zone, right? 55.90, 55.85. Right here, we had some support, right? 55.90, 55.85. This whole consolidation here, very clear right there. On the ES, we had previous highs there, 55.85. Previous highs here, 55.85, right? Look at all these reactions at 55.85 and that 55.90 zone. And we can see that this week on that Thursday drop, look at how the market held above that level. So if at 55.85, 55.90, below that 55.70, and then we have that 50 SMA zone down below, which is always something to watch if we do get that drop, right? There's that Thursday gap up. If we do fail under that 55.70, then we see that 50 SMA. But for now, there is a very clear channel that I would be watching on this ES. Number one, it is the highs at 56.60 to 65. And number two, it is the 55.90 to 55.85 lows. You can see for now, the market is just channeling in that zone. So guys, moving over to the SPY, I think the most important level here is without a doubt 555. That to me, as long as you're above 555, I'm going to go ahead and write this major, just like that right, just like that QQQ, major pivot, make that red, make it a thick boy, and you can see right there, look how clear this is. Previous lows, previous highs, and look at the hold at 555. That is, no doubt, clean as can be, just like this QQQ, right? I know those are the intraday levels. There's your daily levels. Look at how clean that is. Right there on that QQQ, 474. Beautiful, right? Look how clear that is. And if you go to the SPY and you look at it the same way on that daily sort of larger picture, look how clean that is. That 555, 555, 555, and 555. There is no going lower if the SPY is above 555. This is without a doubt a clean break and retest long. This looks very good for upside. Now, of course, NVIDIA earnings will have something to say here, but in terms of technicals, this is a beautiful hold at 555 on the SPY. If we stay above that 555, I think you're just watching these general highs from last week, and then at that point, I'm saying you're going to all-time highs here, guys. So if you stay above that 555 on the SPY, really all you're looking for is a breakout above this high from both Thursday, Friday. If you see us above this 563.18, I really just don't think there's that much left here until all-time highs, right? From that point, you have about $2, right? $2 to that all-time high, and I think a major break above this double top from last week would very easily get us to that all-time high level, right? So very clearly watching between that 555 low and that very clear 563 high. I'm just going to give you those larger term levels here, guys, because that's really the most important thing to pay attention to in a sort of generalized video like this. If you want some of those shorter term levels, come to the pre-market live streams where we sort of dive down into those short-term daily levels on the intraday basis. But I think this is good enough for this video. If you are above this 555, this market ain't going lower. If you break below it, that's when you get concerned, right? But you are not. You are seeing very strong holds above it. That is extremely, extremely key. All right, guys, so what I want to do now is just talk through two of my top watches next week. Number one is Tesla. Number two is SMCI. And SMCI has a little asterisk next to it. Of course, it has a lot to do with that NVIDIA earnings, but there is a very, very interesting technical setup that I am watching here. And maybe, just maybe, if I'm feeling risky this week, I'll look to play this through NVIDIA earnings, just because of how good this technical setup looks. But what we're going to do is we're going to start with Tesla. 210 is a huge level for Tesla. This is the level that has to hold. In my opinion, you have to hold over this 210. There is some very clear previous lows that developed here. And if we go to this 4-hour chart, we can see that 210 held us higher. After we broke under that 210 and rejected it, we stayed lower. We rejected it again right there. Once we got back above 210, the market flips, right? So every time Tesla gets over 210, the bias here flips. Above 210 upside, below 210 downside, above 210 upside. If I'm seeing Tesla above 210, I am looking for upside. And what makes me so interested here is how Tesla had that emotional Thursday straight into that 210 and bounced straight back. That is very, very interesting for me. And that is potentially the move that fuels Tesla higher, right? This type of an emotional downside move that actually respects that 210 level and holds the way it did, right, is potentially the move that fuels this higher, with shorts getting piled in and getting instantly squeezed out of this thing because they're getting a little bit too aggressive short into that 210. The fact that we held here is huge, in my opinion. That is the daily 20, and we did a very good job of maintaining strength into close on Friday. I am absolutely watching Tesla next week, and I'm going to look to find an entry somewhere over this 219. That is something I've been watching as well. I'll show you the 219. That's a little bit of a short-term level that I've been watching. 219 is something that I might look to find an entry on. If not that, then I'm going to look for possibly an entry over this 225, 226 level. Let me show you this 226 as well. I just got to get a little bit more time here. 1 second. So my entry points that I would be looking for longs on Tesla. Number one is 219. Why 219? Let me show you this in the short term. You can see right here, this 219 is right here, it's right here, it's right here, and it's right here, and it's that 50 SMA. If I see Tesla hold 219 next week, I will look for that long entry off that level. The next level that I may want to see Tesla get above before entering is this 226. Let me show you why 226. You can see right here, 226. This is a rejections point. One there, rejection here, rejection here, rejection here. So there's two ways to play this. You can either get in early off this 219, right, and expect that there's a potential hold there, but you have to still be cautious of 226 rejections. What you could do, if you want a little bit more confirmation, is you can wait for Tesla to break 226, hold above it. That, to me, would set up your long into 236. So 226, 219, both spots I'm watching. I really like the fact that Tesla held that 210 level. My ultimate target would be up here to 236. The next thing, and before we close out this video, is SMCI, and here is why. I think this 600 level is very important and very interesting. I want to show you how this is sort of holding on this 4-hour chart. Here's the 4-hour chart on SMCI, and I am very interested to see if SMCI can maintain this 600 level and push potentially off that level post NVIDIA earnings, right? Post NVIDIA earnings, and this is the caveat of this trade. That is why it's sort of an asterisk on this trade, because NVIDIA has to have good earnings, right? If NVIDIA does not have good earnings, then this does not work. But I am in the ballpark or in the boat of NVIDIA being a good reaction on earnings, and that is why I am interested in this play. You guys can see we have a very clear support that has stepped up multiple times on SMCI at 600. Almost a week now, we have maintained above this 600 level. This is a level that I believe can try to create an upside push on SMCI. For now, we can see that the 640 level, it's around 630 to 640, but I'm going to keep it at 640 for you guys. Right around this 640 level is what's keeping us lower. You guys can see right here, 640 and this 640. I would want to get SMCI through 640 if you want that true confirmation of upside. You can either look for that long off 600 and front run the idea, or you can look to see if you can get a break and retest over 640. Now, if SMCI gets over 640, that is where I believe this starts to get interesting, right? Over 640, I think you quickly trade back into these lows at 660, which is right around here. I think you quickly trade back into these lows. This is a gap. So over 640, I think you move quickly to 660. And over 660, I think you quickly move up into that 690 and that 200 SMA right around here, right? This, to me, has the potential to move ultimately about 100 points, right? I think SMCI could see a move up towards this 730, 728 area. Timing, I'm unsure, right? And, of course, market strength will have to remain. If markets do flip and get weak, then you have to sort of, understand that this will not work. If SMCI breaks under 600, then this does not work, right? But I am very interested in how SMCI has maintained the 600, and I am looking to see if NVIDIA earnings is a potential catalyst for some volume in semiconductors and for SMCI to travel back towards this 730 area. This is definitely something I am watching and I think could be very lucrative if you catch it correctly. So guys, that's going to be it for today's video. I just wanted to point out some of these NASDAQ ES levels. Before I leave, I'm going to show you the two things that I think you have to take away from this video. Number one is SPY 555 and QQQ 474. Those are the big two takeaways of this video. QQQ 474, SPY 555. I will see you guys on the live stream tomorrow. Have a fantastic night.